they want to make it as scary as possible. So nobody go. And we try to tell people about their rights.
Dear friends, welcome to another edition of Forum 2000 Online Chat. My name is Arzu Geybullah, and today our guest is Leonid Drabkin, the coordinator with OVD-Info, a Moscow-based human rights organization dealing with issues of freedom of assembly and political persecutions. Leonid, welcome to this edition of Forum 2000 Online Chat. Leonid, I follow OVD websites for recent updates about protests in Russia and any other relevant developments related to that. But for the audience listening to this interview and hearing about OVD maybe for the first time, can you please explain what is OVD, what it does, and your role in the organization?
Yes, so our organization is quite big today. So we have over 60 employees. That's why we have different branches, departments, but so, as you said, we mainly deal with freedom of assembly and other civic rights, such as freedom of association, freedom of speech, etc. And we provide people help. And how do we do it? We believe in our motto, which states that information protects. And it means that once the information is well known, is distributed in different sources, then the person who faced any difficulty, for example, a detention or arrest or any pressure from the government or from whoever, then he feels safer when everyone around knows about it. And this is the first way to help a person. And the second way is direct legal help. So we provide lawyers to people in police stations when they are detained on public rallies. We provide legal help to them in courts, in Russian court, and we also help them to apply to European Court for Human Rights. So the whole, we provide them help during the whole process of this. And so we are well known in our society for our hotline. It works 24 hours, 7 days a week. And when you are detained in any point in Russia, you can call us and tell us the information. And from that point, we launch our mechanism of helping. Again, so we publish some news and we provide you legal help in your city. And we, over the last year, we have So we have about 30, 40 cities where we can provide lawyers, which is very good, including the far east of Russia, Khabarovsk, Vladivostok. So we work with both these cities. And the other way to contact us is our Telegram bot. Telegram is it's one of the most popular messengers in Russia, and you can text us. So this is the same thing as a hotline, but it's more up to date way of communication. And as of today, there are over 150,000 of people who use it. And speaking about hotline, for example, during recent protests in the end of January, so from the 23rd of January to 2nd of February, we got over, 10 or 15,000 calls on our hotline. So in order to proceed these calls, we have many volunteers who helps us in such difficult periods. And so this is this is why we are so resilient, because our organization was established around 10 years ago, and initially it was a volunteer organization. And 10 years ago, there were 2 volunteers out of, and nobody else. Now we have many employees, but still volunteers is our basis. This is our. It's not a support. It's more than a support. This is just a core of us. Also, our activities is funded by crowdfunding, so by private donations, and it is now around 90% of our budget, and there are 24,000 people in Russia who donate us on a monthly basis, so recurring donors. And that's why, well, it's a great feeling, not only because of money we get, but also because we know that we do something which is needed by our civic society. So it's more than just the money. It is about the feedback that we get, because we know that we don't work for a fund or for anyone else, but it's our beneficiaries who supports us, and it's a great feeling. Also, in addition to help the person who is already in trouble, we try to work with system changes. So we publish some articles, we publish some instructions on how to behave in different situations. And so we believe that the more our society know about their rights, and not only rights, but about problems which is in our society, then the mechanism of changing launches, and more people think about it, and they understand the issues and try to solve it, or to, it's enlightenment work. We do it. And also we work with government. So we try to push some initiatives. We analyze the current laws that are in Russia. We analyze the way these laws are applied, and based on it, we publish some recommendations on what should be changed in order to bring more freedom to Russia. And we also send some complaints to state bodies, to local, in different regions, or in Russia Federation in general, and so kind of advocacy work. That's we start sometimes petition, but that's more or less it. I think in general, this is what we do. And you asked me about my role in it, and I'm a general manager of everything what's going on here.
Well, thank you so much for giving this detailed description. It sounds like you have your hands full with all the different directions that you work in. It's fascinating. I'm really a big fan of the work that OVD does. It's really remarkable how quickly also you assemble this information and you publish it on the website. It's really great. Leonid, my next question is about the protests. You briefly mentioned them. You spoke about the protests that we saw in January, but I would like to talk to you about the protests that we just saw last week. Thousands of people across Russia took the streets. They joined the unauthorized rallies to protest against Navalny's arrest. Your organization reported over 1,000 arrests. And obviously, these are not the first protests that we've seen. What can you tell us about these protests in terms of their demographics? I've seen a lot of reports where there are a lot of young people on the streets, calling for change, obviously wanting a different political environment. But you are there, you're observing it more closely, you're reporting on it. What can you tell us about the demographics? Who are the people on the streets?
Mm-hmm. So, first of all, can I make two remarks to your question? We reported almost 2,000 detentions. And secondly, I guess you mentioned that these rallies was unauthorized, but we in our organization don't believe in this term. So we have constitution, and it states that anyone can assemble wherever they want if it's peaceful. And yes, there is a mechanism of authorization of assemblies and peaceful rallies, but this is, we believe, it should not exist. All rallies, they are rallies, no matter whether it's authorized by government or not. So rallies is rallies. And answering your question, we see that, of course, I know more about those who were detained rather than these who were just on the streets, because we work with victims of current regime. But I can tell you that the demographics is very, very, there is no, everyone is on the street. Elder people and younger people, we see over these 3 months and also a week ago, on 21st of April, there were rallies in many cities. This is what I guess we didn't see previously. So we saw detentions in almost 100 cities in Russia. Which means that at least at 100 cities there were rallies, maybe more. But so this is, and in big cities, in small cities, on the north, on the south, east, west, so the whole country. And what is funny, our government is quite sexist, and that's why if you are female, there is a less probability to get a fine or to get arrest, rather. So if you are female, you most likely get a fine, not arrest. But if you are male, then you may go to arrest for several days because of violation of these rights. And yeah, we see this correlation. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I've heard in other countries this sort of tendency where police applies different kind of pressure and intimidation against protesters based on their gender. So it's interesting to hear that you've also observed this in Russia.
And according to law, it's not only a practice, but also in our law, if you are a female and you have children under 14, you cannot be arrested. When I say arrested, it means up to 30 days. Because it's administrative case, we have criminal cases, which is very bad, and administrative cases, which is not that bad. So up to 30 days, you cannot be arrested. You will definitely get a fine. But if you are a male and you have a children under 14, there is no exceptions for you.
Okay, so discrimination on legal basis as well. Okay, that's interesting. Thank you for sharing that with us. So my next question is once again about protests, but this time I would like you to talk a little bit about the response. We've seen that it's been harsh, especially the way, and you just mentioned yourself, how the police has been going after male protesters. The atmosphere on the ground amid all of this, all of the crackdown, all of the arrests and detentions, and of course, the recent decision by the Moscow prosecutor office to designate Navalny's anti-corruption foundation and the original political headquarters as extremist groups. So how would you describe the atmosphere now, especially today? There is a hearing, as far as I understand from the news, in his case. What's the atmosphere? What is the environment like? How do these developments impact people's perception of the current situation in Russia?
Well, I can tell you that, on one hand side, even though that it's only hearing is today about marking them as extremists, but unfortunately, anti-corruption fund has been threatened for many years, but especially over the last 2 months. And it is great that they still do something. I mean, in such conditions, I'm really inspired by them, also by Navalny, who tried to make political statements when he's starving in jail, and also because they do something. It's great. But unfortunately, we see that the pressure from the government is getting more and more higher. And several days ago, the biggest independent media in Russia was labeled as foreign agent. We see that even though they're not yet extremists, I mean, Navalny's fund, but police and other bodies behave themselves with employees of anti-corruption fund as with extremists, because we saw tortures on Wednesday, on Thursday in different cities. Also, during the last weekend, we see some pressure on Navalny activists, and it's very, very bad. And of course, we feel that government introduced new ways of pressures, or not new ways, but they straighten the older ones. And of course, we try to give a response, because civic society, it's about a response to, well, not only about this, but also about the response to the pressure government makes on on our society. And the bigger the repressions, the more new initiatives that deal with some problems. And I'm still optimist, even though that this week is very bad. We saw very bad things, but overall I'm quite optimistic, because we see that civic society has many new initiatives in pockets, and we have many new people around us who can do something, but government has already used all their weapons in that kind.
Well, it gives me optimism to hear you talk about the creativity of the civil society in Russia and this urge and drive to keep going. In the remaining time we have left, I have just two more questions to ask you. And one of them is about, what are the most common charges pressed against people who are often detained in protests? You've mentioned what almost 2,000 people were detained this past week. What are the most common charges they are given in terms of administrative offenses?
Yes. So we have a special administrative article which is about rules of public rallies. And if you violate this for the first time, you get a fine. If you violate it in the second if you repeat this violation in a year, then you may get a administrative arrest. And in January we saw a lot of arrests, and it was unbelievably high. So in a week they arrested as much people as they arrested over the last, I guess, 10 years on this article. So violation of public rallies, of rules of public rallies. And now on 21st of April, most of, well, it's quite, sometimes you get a fine of 20,000 rubles, which is $300. Yeah, more or less it. And in many cases, you are sent to, well, this is not a jail, but it is, it's not, it's, well, special jail for administrative cases, so-called spецприемник, special place. And you get, well, 8-10 days there. Yeah, kind of this. You may also get a criminal case, because this is like 2,000 people were detained, and over, I guess, 1,500 will get either fine or arrest. But some of them may get a criminal case opened, which means you may go to jail for up to, I don't know, 5 years, 6 years, and we have they use different articles to blame you of them. For example, if you making violence to policemen or blocking the street, or if you, I said that if you repeat violation of rules of public rallies 2 times, then you get arrest. But if you do it, I guess 4 times in a half, in some period, 4 times in a row, then you may go to jail for several years. This is so-called Dadin article. And during January protests, there are over 100 criminal cases opened. So over 100 people may get to jail for several years. And this is unfortunately what can happen to those protesters on 21st of April. Because if about administrative case, you got to know immediately that you are you're accused of violation of it. But regarding criminal case, you may be accused a week later, a month later, a year later, whatever. Yeah, so it's quite difficult.
And do you think it affects people who decide whether or not to go on the street? I mean, obviously, this is not happening for the first time, and these are serious charges. Do you think these arrests and detentions and possible criminal cases affect the turnout rate of the people?
Yeah, definitely. This is our field of battle, but this is our battlefield, I mean, OVD-Info and government, because they want to make it as scary as possible. So nobody go. And we try to tell people about their rights, about how to behave. And our aim, more or less, is to make these public rallies as safe as possible. It's our battlefield. And of course, sometimes, government doing their bad job sometimes well.
Well, Leonid, I don't have any further questions, even though I think I could sit and talk to you for another hour, just asking you more questions about what's happening in Russia. But due to time, we have to cut it now. Thank you so much for your time, for all these detailed explanations about what's happening in Russia. Thank you for being hopeful despite it all. I think it also gives a strong message to all of us who are watching what's happening in Russia closely, who are observing the developments, and also for the audience of Forum 2000, who I think are really going to find this interview informative. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. And good luck.
Thank you.